Live. Rich, take us away.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for August 6th, 2020. And we're going to start off as we always do with announcements. And Mary, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So the foundation shared the unhandled rejection survey with us, a first draft of the survey. There's an issue. We ask everyone to take a look to see if there's anything missing in the survey. I know Gus already left some comments. One of the things the foundation suggested that we prepared a blog post to share with the survey to increase visibility. I think it's a good idea, but I don't want to delay the survey if we take too long to prepare the blog post. On the other hand, I just found out that the summary of the survey on SurveyMonkey allows only 4,000 characters, and our summary is longer than that. So we are going to have to remove the summary, which is important to give context on the issue. So maybe we can turn that summary into a blog post with a few changes and share the survey alongside the blog post. Those are a few of the ideas we have. But either way, the survey is almost ready. We just need some folks to review, and after that, we can start sharing on OpenJS Foundation media channels as well as on our own Twitter accounts, etc.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions or additional information about the unhandled rejection survey? Yeah, I will add that it's TSC issue number 902 if anybody's looking for it in the repository. Okay, cool. Are there other announcements besides the near readiness of the unhandled rejection survey? Does anybody have anything else to announce to the world before we move along to our usual agenda? Okay, we usually do CPC and board meeting updates. I believe our CPC rep currently is Mateo, he's not here, and I believe our board rep right now is Michael, and he's also not here. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not, I'm just gonna move along to the next topic. Okay, so there's renaming the default branch from master to main or something similar. This seems to largely be a placeholder, but I'm guessing that maybe somebody has updates for us. Oh, sorry, I gotta promote people who are joining a little on the, let me do that. Miles or someone else, is any updates on the branch renaming?
Yeah, GitHub rolled out support for forwarding. Specifically for, my understanding is for URLs, not for Git URLs. So I think one of the concerns that we were waiting on was having better support for if these things get changed. I do not believe that there is any forwarding yet for Git URLs, which might be something that we want to wait on.
When you say Git URLs, does that mean Git : / or something else?
Yeah, so right now, if you change it, there's support for forwarding the canonical links. So if you try to go to HTTPS node, GitHub /Node.js/node / I think it would be I forget what the canonical URL is, but we'd maybe have links to master around the internet, and those links would get forwarded to the new default branch name. What I do not believe is there right now is the ability to git pull master and still get main without us setting up some sort of tool to kind of keep a branch that's up to date.
Okay, so so forwarding for HTTPS URLs is ruled out, but Git cold. Are we talking about the scheme, or are we talking about the consumer? Like if there's
it's the consumption. So like if you're consuming via a browser, you will get redirected as expected. If you are consuming as a Git client, if we don't have a master branch, someone trying to pull from master will fail, which was one of the concerns that we had. I know that there's something being worked on to offer something here. It's just not there yet, as far as I know. Now there are tools that we could use. We could use GitHub Actions to essentially keep a master branch that's locked that we don't touch in sync with main, and that would allow for that kind of support. But you know, I know that there were mixed feelings about whether or not it was, you know, worth setting up that infrastructure until things were more stable, if it would potentially, you know, break the world in unexpected ways. I am personally willing to put together a more in-depth proposal of exact steps that we could take and outline what the risks are, but I just didn't want to really put in too much work into that if it seemed like a non-starter so far.
Okay, so there's really nothing for us to necessarily do at the moment, is in your opinion? Just kind of waiting to see what kind of support GitHub comes up with for forwarding and other issues, or is there something we should be acting on?
I think that the forwarding for URLs is actually one of the things that we weren't able to do ourselves. So having that is good. Although if we keep a cloned master branch, like that's kept up to date, you know, that's going to work. I still think from the beginning that it's something that we could roll out, but I know that people were not bullish on taking a risk here. So like, not a hill that I'm going to die on around this. So if folks are still feeling kind of not super comfortable doing it yet, we don't have to. I think another thing, honestly, which I said I would do, which hasn't happened yet, is doing this on one of our less used repos. I think that I had suggested it for Node.js.dev as well as for Canary in the Goldmine. So I think rolling out a procedure on those and seeing it work for a little bit may be a good step as well.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to, like, you know, let's find out what happens, what breaks and what doesn't break, and what the pain points are for us on a repo that's not core, and then take those lessons. Yeah, does anybody else have something they want to say about this, or ask, or offer to do?
So basically, with this forwarding in place, is that the word master can be completely eliminated in all its usage, and internally it will be bound to the master? Is it how it works?
For the website, not for Git. So anyone who tries to Git pull master will, if we don't have the master branch, it will fail for them. But we can make an action that just keeps the two branches in sync.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
And if we had an action that kept the two branches in sync, and then we made one of the branches read only, that should keep the majority, in my personal opinion, it should keep pretty much any tool that's relying on us working, except for tools that push to master. And there's a very small number of people, I guess, push to main in that case. And there's, you know, a smaller group of people who are doing that. And that would probably be, you know, like updating the text output of core utils.
Yeah, I would, I might suggest starting with even a smaller repo, if you, I mean, a less active repo if you wanted to, like core validate commit, or node preset remark lint, whatever the, you know, that one is, the linting preset one is. But you do you. Would you be willing to do that? Like get started on that with one of the repos, like this week or next week or something, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I opened issues on these repos asking to do it and have not had any negative feedback yet. And I was just kind of leaving them open for a little while to make sure there was no miscommunication. So I could go into, I honestly think like part of the reason I wanted to do .dev honestly was because we have automations that are set up. So I want to force having to update some of those. So I'll go and drop in those issues and basically say I'm going to break ground on this work next week if no one says not to.
Okay, so I'm going to put in the minutes that Miles will see about moving forward with those repositories. Well, so not committing to do it, but committing you to see about doing it. Is that all right?
Yeah, and actually hilariously, and I forgot this, 2 days ago on SipGim, I wrote that if no one objects by the end of the week, I'll work on it next week.
Okay,
So I've already committed to doing this, I guess.
So I'll ask the weird question, which is, do we have an official policy on this whole keeping master around? Because conceptually, I struggle with the idea of even just having this reference. Like even if it's just the read-only branch that mirrors main, it still feels like we're just like kind of missing the point. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I think that having the temporary branch and very much making it temporary, documenting it and maybe keeping it for 6 months and then getting rid of it is something that we could do. I think like the challenge here is going to be very much, and I think this is something that was being talked about. I think there is a way for us to maybe improve this a little bit, but like the big challenge that we've got right now is that we need to at least give people a heads up that have automations that are built on top of this, that like, hey, your automations are going to break. So I see it almost like a deprecation cycle. And like the goal should be that we don't have it eventually, but that like I think it would be hard for us to just do like a hard pivot on this without breaking people downstream in unexpected
Yeah, no,
ways.
I completely empathize with that. I think the only thing that I'll say is we'll probably want to be mindful about the messaging, because I mean, it just in a vacuum without any messaging, like switching to main, keeping master around as a backup feels like a very hand wavy sort of, we did something, but not really, you know.
Yeah, I think that we very well could do this in such a way where like we document it, make it clear, commit to a timeline of removing it, send out some sort of messaging to folks. And I think with that in mind, it also speaks to the fact that we should be intentional and thoughtful about how we roll this out.
Thanks, Miles.
So I did not capture most of that for the minutes. Anatoly's concern and Miles' response. So if you want that in the minutes, either go ahead and drop it in yourself, or tell me in no uncertain terms that I need to summarize that conversation. But I think I started to type that like Anatoly messaging, stuff like that. But I'm not good at this keeping minutes thing. So in real time. Okay, anything else about this issue before we move on to the next one? All right. Okay, so next up is resigning from CPC voting member. This is Matteo is going to be stepping down for good reasons, for happy reasons. But let's see here. Yeah, so nobody has put anything in there. Let's see here. So what's the time frame on this? Starting in November. Okay, so we have plenty of time, but we do need to pick a replacement. And I'm not sure what the process will be, but I'm inclined to leave this on the agenda, but probably not discuss it much today unless somebody has unless somebody feels like we need to make decisions now about how we're gonna do this, set some dates for nominations or whatever. I'll stop talking for 2 or 3 seconds to let somebody jump in and say something if they want to. Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay, so next up then is auditing the Google account access. I mean, this is really something between Brian Warner and like Michael at this point, I think. Is there, I guess it's really just on the agenda to make sure it doesn't slip through the cracks. Let's see here. And it looks like the last comment in it was in June, so 6 weeks ago, roughly. By
the way, it looks like Miles. Oh, sorry, Matteo joined.
Thank you. Yeah, let's promote.
If you make me a co-host, I can help with the promotions.
Oh yeah, let me do that. You want to be a co-host too, Anatoly, since you noticed? All right. Hi, Matteo. You are on mute if you're talking.
Sorry, hello, folks. I don't know if you've chat already about the thing that I put it on the agenda.
November coming off this.
Yes.
We just finished not talking about it. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, to be honest, that is the only the only part in there is that establishing that there is a few to-do items, which is establishing who will take my place, and then deciding what the timeline for that.
Right.
So,
I put in the notes that we need to establish a process with dates, like how are we going to pick the next person, and what are the dates going to be? Go on.
That's what it is. So if we are in agreement, then I can just write a few lines in there and try to see if there is. I would just ask for volunteers if there is more than one volunteer to join, essentially, and then see where we are at. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, why don't we? I like the idea of putting out in a call, like in the issue, just leave a comment, tagging TSC, asking for people to volunteer to be, and give like a 2 weeks, 1 week.
Yeah,
I think about right.
2 weeks. I would say 2 weeks is
2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, we come back and see who's volunteered. If nobody's volunteered, we figure something out. If one person's volunteered, it's an easy decision, and if more than one person volunteers, we probably have a vote.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so you'll do that, Matteo? You'll put that?
I'll do that.
Okay, Matteo will put a comment in the issue calling for people to volunteer / self-nominate over the next 2 weeks. Okay, great. Super. Does anybody else have anything? I mean, I think any further comments on that? Okay, let's move along then to the auditing Google account access. So nothing's happened in that for about 6 weeks. I mean, I would like it to be audited. I assume the foundation has audited it or is auditing it. I'm kind of inclined to just, I mean, either we should be doing something to get more information, or we should just remove it from the agenda, but just kind of like having it as this item that recurs is kind of not, it's served its purpose, but what do we do now? So I guess my inclination would be, I'll follow up with Brian like an email, and I'll report back next week. Unless somebody else has another idea. Okay, it's in the minutes, so it's official. Let's talk about strategic initiatives, unless there's anything else to add to the agenda, which I forgot to ask at the beginning. Matteo, since you're here, is there anything about core promises?
Nope. No progress, or maybe slight progress, but you know, those takes, it's long progress. So with this top level away though, but that's probably on the miles point but update. So that's the big one probably.
I would say that there's a few other minor bits of progress, like the streams in Stream API now, the internal functions like underscore construct, underscore destroy. We just landed yesterday a pull request that allow those to be async functions. So we're getting more promise support throughout the core APIs, but it, you know, incremental.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Let's see here. Michael Zazo is not here, so can't talk about V8 currency unless someone else can pick that one up. James wrote that quick, there's ongoing development, but nothing major to report. Is that still accurate?
Yeah, you know, all the active, you know, all development is in pull requests in the main repo, so you know people can follow along there. It's just ongoing. So.
All right. Startup performance. Joey wrote that still working on upstream V8 issue. Nothing new to update. And then let's see here. Build resources. Michael's not here. And then I skipped modules, and looks like there's some stuff to report there. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to talk about it, Miles?
Yeah, I can introduce it. So there's a conversation around in ESM. We removed the default extension resolution algorithm and resolving from folders to resolve the index.js. That was very intentional for a number of reasons. That discussion has reopened this week, and there's been some discussion around, you know, like whether or not this was the right choice or not. I think the opinions, at least in the team, are split. I think personally, and this is just high level, and I could be off, that there are more folks who agree with the behavior that we landed on than would like us to revert back to the former behavior. Although I think there is also a disproportionate number of the members that are like Node core maintainers, and some of the members of the modules group who are not maintainers are part of the camp that would like to see the behavior brought back. At the moment, I don't believe that we are going to be looking at making large changes to the implementation, but just wanted to make folks aware that that conversation has kind of come back up again. And it actually came up because we were doing a cleanup of the issues, and someone pinged the thread saying, hey, can we close this? So, you know, that's a story as old as time. There is a discussion around package exports that resulted in feedback from some developers that were surprisingly broken on 12.x with the unflagging. That discussion is being brought to the release working group. This particular scenario was very much in line with breakages that we were expecting. There's basically, when package exports is starting to be used, the package.json is no longer exported by default, which some folks find to be unintuitive, and there's a large conversation going on just about that. But Node Fetch version 3 introduced exports, and in introducing exports did not export the package JSON, and it broke people moving between 12.16 and 12.17. My take on it personally, which folks may not agree, is this is totally reasonable and within expectations. There's a new feature that's being used. It was released in a Semver Major release of Node Fetch, where they did break an interface, but it was broken in a Semver Major change. The the project is able to fix this, and there's an open pull request that would bring back this behavior. So the only way in which this behavior would not continue to exist would be if it was intentional on behalf of the project. So there's ways to remediate this without Node getting involved at all. I don't see this personally as any different from a project adopting a feature that we put out in a Semver minor of 12, which we do all the time. If any new feature is introduced in a Semver minor of an LTS release, and that's adopted by a package, that will break older versions of that LTS release that don't have that feature. I mention this mostly because unless we're looking at revisiting our entire LTS process around Semver minors, I don't personally think that this is something that requires extensive revisiting. I think the failures that we're seeing are totally within the scope of what we expected to happen and is able to be remediated without any work being done on our part. At the same time, though, this one particular case of the package JSON seems to be one that is confusing to folks and unintuitive, and the modules team is continuing to discuss whether or not we want to have a slightly better remediation or ability for folks to get access to the package JSON of a package that has exports that's not explicitly exporting it. Any questions about that?
Thanks, Miles. Matteo, I dropped a question for you in the chat, just FYI. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Miles. I copy pasted your comment about all of this in from the issue tracker into the minutes. Hopefully that will suffice. And that's it for strategic initiatives, I think. I'm gonna just check in with people who we haven't heard from during this meeting to make sure there's nothing else to talk about. And I'm gonna do it in the order that I see them in my Zoom session here. So Tobias, is there anything we need to talk about?
Not from my side.
Shelly, anything that you want to tell people or that we need to discuss, bring up?
Nope, not at the moment.
Colin?
Nope, nothing from me.
Bethany?
Nope, not here.
All right, great. I just wanted to hear people's voices. James, you have something. Go for it.
Yeah, just really quick. Just as a heads up for a future TSC meeting, GitHub user Arcanus, involved with the Yarn project, has put together a prototype implementation of a what for better or worse is considered a package manager that would basically allow us to ship support for not just NPM but also Yarn, PNPM, these other things. There's a lot of details. It's a very complex thing. In a future TSC meeting, what I'd like to do is see if we can invite him to come in and give a demo and talk about it, so everyone is aware of what it is and what it's doing. Because one of the questions that I'd like to tackle later on is potentially adopting it within core. So there's a lot to it. I know that was, what I just said probably raises more questions than answers, but just as a heads up, I would like to invite them later on.
So maybe it makes sense to open an issue, tag it, and tag the, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the name, but the person that you want to invite. And then we can sort of sort out if we want to put this on the agenda or if we want to like create a separate meeting just to discuss that or something. But I'm gonna poke around GitHub and the internet for that when we get off of this. But thanks for bringing that up. Anything else before we sign off the live stream and stick around for the private segment? Anybody? All right. Well, thanks everyone, and I'm gonna turn off streaming and we'll pick things up. And for the internet folks, see you next week.